My name is Anna Reeves. I am 34 years old. And the morning I signed the papers on a house in Millbrook, Tennessee, the listing agent handed me a pen and said, "Congratulations. This one has been on the market for 14 months. The previous owners really did not want to let it go." I already knew that. I had grown up in that house. I had eaten breakfast at its kitchen table for 18 years. I had memorized the sound the third stair made when you stepped on it at night. I had painted my bedroom twice, once at 11 because I wanted yellow and once at 14 because I had decided yellow was wrong, and spent a weekend correcting the decision with a shade of blue that my mother called interesting in the tone she used when she meant something else entirely. My name was not on that house when I grew up in it. It was on it now. The pen was in my hand. The notary was across the table. My real estate attorney was beside me. The closing disclosure showed a purchase price of $412,000 for a property that had been in my family, or rather, had been the property my family lived in while someone else owned it, for 16 years. I signed my name. Then I sat back in my chair and thought about a Sunday dinner 12 years ago when my father had looked across a table of 9 people and said I was the least likely person in this family to ever own anything worth having. 9 people had heard it. I was the 10th. Sitting 2 seats to his left. Holding a fork, I sat down carefully before I said anything. Before I tell you what I said that Sunday, and what I built in the 12 years between that dinner and this closing table, I need to take you back. To a family that had a vocabulary for failure and used it specifically and often. And to a dream they had mocked so consistently that I had eventually stopped sharing it and started using it as fuel instead. If you are watching this right now, drop your city in the comments. Just your city. I read every one. And if someone spent years telling you what you would never have, like this video, stay with me. I grew up in Millbrook in a house that belonged to someone named Gerald Finch. Gerald Finch was a property investor in Nashville who owned 43 units across Middle Tennessee and managed them through a company that sent a maintenance crew twice a year and a rent increase letter once. He had never seen the house. He did not know that the third stair made a sound, or that the kitchen window faced east and filled the room with light at 7 in the morning, or that my grandmother had planted a rose bush along the south fence that came back every April without being asked. My parents, Thomas and Barbara Reeves, had rented from Gerald Finch for 16 years and had spent much of that time explaining to themselves and their children why owning was not realistic. Not yet, maybe next year. Circumstances had not aligned, the timing was not right. The explanation changed its specific shape over the years, but the conclusion never did. My father worked in logistics management for a regional trucking company. Reliable income. Not dramatic. Sufficient for the life they had built, with the specific caveat that the life included a payment to Gerald Finch every month that built equity for Gerald Finch and nothing for anyone at our kitchen table. My mother worked part-time at a dental office and full-time managing the household and the family narrative, the story of who we were and who we were likely to become and what was realistic to expect. My older brother Dennis had accepted the narrative early. He was 4 years ahead of me, comfortable, the kind of person who finds the path of least resistance and walks it without resentment. He had stayed in Millbrook, taken a job at the county public works department, married a woman who grew up 3 streets over. My younger sister Jody had also accepted it. Warm, social, entirely at ease within the parameters of what the family had decided was possible. I was the one who kept asking why the parameters were where they were. Not combatively. Just specifically. I noticed when the explanation for why something was not possible was actually an explanation for why it had not been attempted. I noticed the difference between a reason and an excuse. I pointed this out with the regularity of someone who does not yet understand that pointing it out does not change anything and may, in fact, make Sunday dinners significantly less comfortable. At 19 I told my parents I wanted to study real estate and development. My father looked up from his plate. "You want to do what?" "Real estate," I repeated. "Development. Investment. I want to learn how ownership works." My father set down his fork. He had the expression of a man who has been asked to consider something he finds implausible. "We rent," he said. "Do you understand what that means financially?" We do not have the capital to. I know, I told him. That is why I want to study it. To understand how people get from renting to owning. Dennis made a sound from the end of the table. Not cruel. The sound of someone who finds an idea so removed from their context that amusement is the automatic response. My mother said I was welcome to study whatever I wanted but that I should have a backup plan because real estate was not stable. My father said that owning property required capital and that capital required income and that income in our family came from jobs and not investments and that there was no shame in that. That was the first version of the conversation. It became many versions over the following years as my intentions became more concrete and the family's response remained consistent. At 22, the Sunday dinner. 9 people at the table. My parents. Dennis and his wife. Jody. 2 aunts and an uncle. A family friend named Ray who had known my father since high school and appeared at most large gatherings. I had mentioned a property I had been researching. A multi-unit building in Nashville that I believed was undervalued. I had run the numbers. I had a partial plan for financing. I was sharing it in the tentative way you share things with people you are not sure will receive them carefully. My father listened to approximately 2 minutes of it. Then he looked around the table, the full pan, 9 faces, the assembled evidence of his family, and said, Anna is the least likely person in this room to ever own anything worth having. He said it conversationally. Not as an attack. As an assessment. The voice of a man who believes he is offering a realistic corrective to unrealistic thinking and is performing this service in front of witnesses so the lesson lands more firmly. 9 people heard it. Ray laughed. Not meanly. He just laughed. Dennis looked at his plate. My mother said, Thomas, and then did not finish the sentence. I set down my fork. Looked at my father. Then I said, very quietly, the only sentence that felt both honest and worth saying. Write that down, I told him. Because I am going to want to show it to you later. My father frowned. Show me what? The receipt, I said. For the first property. The table went quiet. Then Ray laughed again, and the conversation moved on, and I picked up my fork and finished my dinner and drove home that evening with the specific clarity of someone who has just been handed a direction they did not have before. I had been heading toward real estate. Now I was heading toward this house. I graduated at 23 with a degree in real estate development from the University of Tennessee. My parents attended the ceremony. My father wore his good jacket. My mother took photographs. Afterward at lunch my father said, so now what? I told him I had a position at a property management company in Nashville. Entry level. Learning the operations side before the investment side. He nodded in the way that meant he was reserving judgment. I worked at that company for 2 years. I learned how rental properties were managed, maintained, and priced. I learned how property taxes worked, how insurance was structured, how leases were written. I learned how landlords thought about their portfolios and what made a property worth holding versus worth selling. I saved obsessively. Every paycheck, a percentage went directly into an account I had labeled simply a fund. Not retirement. Not emergency. The fund for the first property. At 25 I had $22,000 in the fund. I called a mentor I had met through the university program, a woman named Gerald Finch who had started with 1 duplex in Chattanooga in 1994 and now had a portfolio of 31 units, and said I was ready. She drove me to look at 3 properties that weekend. The first was a single-family rental in East Nashville that needed significant renovation. The second was a small commercial property with a complicated zoning issue. The third was a duplex in Antioch, unremarkable, slightly tired, but structurally sound in the way that Carol had taught me to identify from the foundation up. This one, I told her. Tell me why, she said. I walked her through the numbers. Purchase price, renovation cost, projected rental income, cap rate, cash-on-cash return. Everything I had been running in spreadsheets for 3 years from library books and free online courses, and 2 years of watching how the company I worked for managed its own assets. Carol listened to all of it. You did not miss anything, she said. Not one line item. My father said I was the least likely person in the room to own anything worth having, I told her. Carol looked at the duplex. Then at me. Then he has not been in the right rooms, she said. I closed on the Antioch duplex at 25 with $22,000 down and a loan I had qualified for on the strength of my employment record and credit history. The first tenant moved in 6 weeks later. The second unit followed 3 months after that. Both units cash flowed from month 1. I drove back to Millbrook that Christmas. My father asked how the property was going. I told him it was fully occupied and generating positive cash flow. He nodded. Not dismissively. Carefully. The nod of a man updating an assessment. I said nothing else about it. The next 7 years followed a specific pattern. Each property I acquired taught me something the previous one had not. Each one was slightly more complicated, slightly larger, slightly more challenging. Each one required me to learn something I did not already know. At 27, a 4-unit building in Murfreesboro. At 29, a mixed-use property in a redeveloping neighborhood of Nashville that required 18 months of renovation and patience. I had to teach myself through the specific discomfort of watching a project run over budget and over schedule and staying with it anyway. At 31, a small commercial strip in a suburb that came with a tenant dispute I resolved by understanding the lease more thoroughly than either party involved. At 32, my portfolio had 11 units generating consistent income and a net worth that I tracked in a spreadsheet I updated every Sunday the way my father had once tracked the household expenses, methodically, without drama, because the numbers were the honest version of the story. I had not told my family any of the specific numbers. I had told them I was doing well. That the work was going well. That I was building something. Each time the conversation moved on to other things, Dennis's promotion, Jody's children, my parents' plans, and my update sat briefly in the air and then dissolved. They had heard it. They had just not listened. Then Gerald Finch decided to sell. I found out from my mother. She called on a Thursday evening, her voice carrying the specific quality of someone delivering news they find distressing and are not sure how to arrange. The landlord is selling, she told me. We got a letter. They are listing it next month. We have 60 days to find somewhere else or to. She paused. The listing price is $412,000. I was at my desk. I had my portfolio spreadsheet open from the Sunday update. I know the house, Mom, I said. We cannot afford. I know, I said. How long has it been listed? Not yet. It goes up next month. I looked at my spreadsheet. At the number in the lower right corner. At 12 years of Sunday updates in a file labeled, the receipt. I am going to call you back, I told her. I hung up. Opened a new tab. Pulled the property records for the Millbrook address. Reviewed the tax assessment, the last sale price, the comparable sales in the area. $412,000 was fair. Not discounted, not inflated. Fair. I called Carol Hines. I want to buy a house, I said. Investment or personal? Both, I said. It is complicated. She listened while I explained. When I finished, she was quiet for 3 seconds. Then she said, buy the house, Anna. If you have ever been told you would never own anything worth having, drop a fire in the comments. Subscribe if you are not already here. Because what happens at the closing table when I call my father from the parking lot is the moment 12 years of Sunday spreadsheets were building toward. I did not tell my parents I was buying the house. Not because I wanted to surprise them dramatically. Because I needed to know whether I was buying it for the right reasons before I said anything to anyone. I spent 2 weeks with that question. Was I buying it because it was a sound investment? The numbers said yes. 14 months on market, motivated seller, fair price, strong rental potential in a market I understood deeply. Was I buying it because I wanted to show my father something? Also yes. I did not try to pretend otherwise. Were both of those reasons allowed to be true at the same time? Carol said yes. People buy houses for all kinds of reasons, she told me. The math either works or it does not. If it works, the reason you liked the math is your own business. The math worked. I made the offer on a Monday. The seller, Gerald Finch's property management company, acting through an agent who had never met Gerald Finch and could not have picked him out of a lineup, accepted on Wednesday. The closing was scheduled for 4 weeks later. I called my mother the day before. I need to tell you something, I said. About the house. She assumed I had found them somewhere else to live. She started thanking me before I could finish the sentence. Mom, I said. I am buying it. A silence. What? The house. I am the buyer. I closed tomorrow morning. Another silence. Longer. You? Yes, I said. How? 12 years, I said. 11 units. A spreadsheet I update every Sunday. A mentor named Carol. A duplex in Antioch when I was 25 with $22,000 down. My mother made a sound I had never heard from her before. Not quite a laugh. Not quite a cry. Something in between that has no clean name but that I understood completely. Does your father know? No, I said. I am going to call him after I sign. The closing took 45 minutes. Frances, my attorney, reviewed every page. I signed where she indicated. The notary witnessed. The wire transferred. The agent handed me the keys. 3 keys on a plain ring. The front door, the back door, the garden shed along the south fence where my grandfather's tools had lived for years before he died and my father had kept them without using them. I held the keys in my palm. The listing agent said the thing about the previous owners not wanting to let it go. I know, I told her. I grew up here. She looked at me. Then at the keys. Then at the closing disclosure with the purchase price. Oh, she said quietly. Yes, I said. I called my father from the parking lot. He answered on the second ring. His voice had the quality it always had on weekday mornings, alert, slightly distracted, the voice of someone who has already been moving for several hours. Anna. Dad, I said. I am not calling to make you feel bad. I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear all of it before you respond. All right, he said. 12 years ago at Sunday dinner you told everyone at that table that I was the least likely person in the room to own anything worth having, I said. I asked you to write it down. You did not. But I remembered it. I have been working toward this specific moment every single day since. He did not speak. I have 11 units, I said. Antioch, Murfreesboro, Nashville, the commercial strip on Route 9. Total portfolio value is approximately $2.3 million. The Millbrook house makes 12 units. I update the spreadsheet every Sunday. $2.3 million, I said. Yes. A very long pause. The receipt, he said. I almost smiled. He had remembered. 12 years later, across a phone line in a parking lot in Millbrook, he had remembered the exact word I had used at the Sunday dinner table. The receipt, I said. Yes. I was wrong, he said. 3 words. Flat. Unqualified. The voice of a man who has spent 12 years being certain of an assessment and has just been shown the error in the column. I know, I said. Not just wrong about the property, he said. Wrong about what you were capable of. Wrong about what was realistic. Wrong to say it in front of everyone. Yes, I said. All of that. I do not know how to account for 12 years, he said. You account for it by asking the right questions going forward, I told him. Not about the money. About the work. Ask me how I learned. Ask me what Carol taught me. Ask me what went wrong on the Nashville renovation and how I fixed it. That is where you start. Can I come see it, he said. The house. I looked at the keys in my hand. 3 keys on a plain ring. Come Sunday, I said. I will make breakfast. He came at 9. He drove himself. Parked in the driveway the way he had parked for 16 years, slightly to the left, out of habit, leaving room for a car that no longer needed to fit beside his. I opened the front door before he knocked. He stood on the porch in his good jacket, the same one from my graduation, slightly more worn at the elbows now, and looked at me. Then he looked at the door frame. The specific door frame he had measured once to figure out whether a new refrigerator would fit through it. The 3rd stair, he said. Still makes the sound, I told him. I am going to keep it. He came inside. We walked through the house the way you walk through a place that has been yours in some form and is now yours in a different one, slowly, noticing things, letting them be what they were and what they are at the same time. The kitchen. The east window. The morning light. He stood at the kitchen table for a long time. Your grandmother's rose bush, he said. Along the south fence. Still there, I said. Came back this April. He sat down at the table. The same chair he had sat in for 16 years. The chair where he had delivered assessments and managed expectations and said things he had believed were honest and had turned out to be incomplete. I made breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee. The same things he had eaten at this table for 16 years, cooked by me in a kitchen that now had my name on the deed. We ate. He asked about the Antioch duplex. How I had found it. How I had financed it. What went wrong and how I fixed it. I told him everything. The $22,000 down payment. Carol Hines. The 18 months on the Nashville renovation. The tenant dispute. The Sunday spreadsheet. He listened to all of it. Not with the distracted half-attention of someone waiting for their turn to speak. The full attention of a man who has understood, at 63, that he missed something important and is trying to understand what it was. Carol, he said. She taught you to look at foundations. She taught me to read a building the way you read a balance sheet, I told him. What is underneath versus what is visible. The two are not always the same. He looked at the kitchen table. No, he said quietly. They are not. Dennis called the following week. He had heard from my father. Not everything, my father had said enough to prompt a call and had left the rest to me. Dennis was not apologetic. He was not the kind of person who arrived at apologies easily. He was the kind of person who arrived at honesty when the evidence was sufficient. 2.3 million, he said. Approximately, I said. It varies with the market. And you have been building this for 12 years. Yes. While we thought. While nobody asked, I said. There is a difference. He was quiet. I laughed, he said. At the dinner. When Dad said it. I know, I said. I should not have. No, I said. You should not. What do I do with that, he said. Stop laughing when someone says something cannot be done, I told him. Start asking what would need to be true for it to be possible. That is what I did. That is the whole thing. He was quiet for a moment. Can I bring the kids to see the house, he said. Sunday after next, I said. I will make lunch. My mother called Thursday evening. She had been to the house twice since the closing. Once with my father. Once alone, to stand in her kitchen and look at the east window and the morning light and understand what it meant that the address was the same and the name on the deed was different. The rose bush, she said. Every April, I said. Without being asked. She made the sound again. The one with no clean name. I said it was not realistic, she told me. When you were 19. When you said you wanted to study development. Yes, I said. I said have a backup plan. Yes. I said real estate was not stable. You did. I was protecting you, she said. That is what I told myself. I was being practical. I was keeping you from getting hurt. I know, I said. Was I, she said. Protecting you? I thought about the honest answer. You were protecting yourself, I told her. From the possibility that what was realistic for you was not the limit of what was possible for me. Those are different things, Mom. And the second one is harder to hold. She was quiet for a long time. Yes, she said finally. That is true. It is not a criticism, I said. It is just what happened. What do I do with it, she said. Come for breakfast on Sundays, I told her. Sit at the kitchen table. Let it be different. That is enough. My name is Anna Reeves. I am 34 years old. My family laughed when I left. My father said I was the least likely person in the room to own anything worth having. My mother said have a backup plan. My brother laughed at the dinner table. 12 years later I bought the house with a check from a portfolio I built one Sunday spreadsheet at a time. I told my father from a parking lot in Millbrook. He said I was wrong. 3 words. No qualifications. I told him to come on Sunday. He came at 9. We walked the 3rd stair. We ate breakfast at the kitchen table. He asked how I learned. I told him everything. The rose bush came back in April. It always does. I update the spreadsheet every Sunday. 11 units becoming 12. The number in the lower right corner growing in the quiet way of things that are tended consistently by someone who knows that the work is the only argument worth making. My father asked to come on Sundays. My mother asked to come on Sundays. Dennis is coming the Sunday after next with the kids. The table that Gerald Finch never saw is mine now. The kitchen with the east window is mine now. The 3rd stair that makes a sound in the night is mine now. The backup plan was always this. I just did not explain it until the receipt was ready. If someone told you what you would never own, leave 1 word in the comments. Just 1. I read every single one. And if this story reminded you that what is realistic for someone else is not the limit of what is possible for you, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. Subscribe. The next story is already waiting.